the best emails I get are from people who thought that part of their identity was gone. They're the one that cooks on Memorial Day. They do all the grilling for, 4th of July. And now they thought they'd never be able to do it again. And somehow they find the blind kitchen. And so it gives people that part of their identity back.
Time to fire up that grill. From smoked pork to smash burgers, outdoor cooking just tastes better. This is the Okie Smokin podcast. And here's your host, John Berry.
Welcome back to the Okie Smokin podcast. Today, I've got a very special guest, a chef as well, an executive chef, and the founder of The Blind Kitchen. Her name is Debra Erickson. She was one of the only blind students in her class, a former instructor with Oregon Commission for the Blind. How are you doing today? Welcome in.
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
Now, so how did you get the idea for The Blind Kitchen?
Well, I am blind myself, and I like to teach, and I graduated from culinary school in 2019, and in March of 2020, and so I was teaching at the Commission for the Blind, teaching legally blind adults how to cook safely, and then COVID hit. And so I found myself at home for a year and a half, not able to do teaching. So I went ahead and organized all the different things I'd learned, and grilling was part of what we had to cover and all types of fabrication of meats and things like that. So I knew a lot about adaptive cooking tools if you do have vision loss and you want to grill. And in fact, we have a grilling collection on the website. Quite a few tools have to do specifically with outdoor barbecuing, grilling, smoking.
And are those tools different that you need for the grill or for just a regular indoor oven and stove, or different?
No, outdoor grill. So if I'm cooking indoors, if I'm broiling or something in my oven, I have a certain pair of gloves. There's a different one for outside because your arms are often over the heat source. In the kitchen, you can avoid putting your hands in the oven, but you can't outside because it's going to be over the coals or over the flame. So the tools are specifically for outdoor grilling and barbecuing. Some of them.
Right, because I know if you're using the oven, you can just gently, maybe pull it closer to you and just reach in and grab the pot or pan without actually going over the fire. And on the grill, you don't really have that option.
You're exactly right. That's why the gloves are different. Mm-hmm.
Gloves have to be longer. What if you have some kind of a searing up, or sometimes the fire can get a little too hot? Is there a way for you to identify that?
It definitely can. You can hear it usually, and certainly you can feel it. And so then you would have the controls marked, and it's very easy to do it. They're called bump dots, and you put them in predictable places, like maybe at 300, maybe at 350, maybe at 400. And that way, if I'm doing, it depends on your controls, but if I'm doing a dial, I have to know where the tip of the dial is pointing to, and it usually forms a point. They're almost all manufactured that way. And so if I want the 350, I'm going to go until it lines up with that second bump dot that is located on the grill itself. So that's how I control the temperature. And so if I need to bring it down, I bring it down. And the other thing is that they're a very small percentage of people who are legally blind are completely blind. It's a very, very small portion. Most people do have light perception. So if the light gets brighter, or a flame, as you're talking about, we do have some visual information. It won't be as clear as yours, but it'll still be information that's useful to us to help us make sure we can keep doing what we still love to do.
Right. And I assume you would you would listen, and you could probably start to hear it ramp up, because when you get you do have some flame noise coming out of it that you can detect, and of course the heat of it as well.
Sure. You would use all three of those senses and whatever vision if you're lucky enough to have some.
What are some of the more common fears that you would suspect someone visually impaired would have when cooking in the kitchen or on the grill?
Okay, so for the grill specifically, we could talk about preparation, cutting, and people are afraid of cutting themselves and burning themselves, of embarrassing themselves by looking messy or uncoordinated, or also by producing unattractive food for their guests. I'm handing you a plate of food, I can't see it. But for grilling, I do want to stick to that. It's mostly fear of burning yourself or fear of not being able to manipulate the food on the grill, not to know when to do it and not to know how to do it. So I'll tell you about some of the information I'll be giving you is based on tools, and some of them are just strategies. So another fear people have is making people sick. And because we undercook the food, like especially poultry or seafood. So there is a tool out there that was not made for blind people. It's called a talking thermometer, and mostly it was created for nighttime grilling when you can't see the display very well. Most of these have a backlight on the display, but it's still very hard for a lot of people to see at night. And so that's why this talking thermometer was created. And you can toggle between Celsius or Fahrenheit, and all you have to do is push a button. An educated guess as to how close in the center it is, but it's an educated guess when you're doing it, even if you can see perfectly well. You can't see into the meat, but you put it and then you press the button, and it'll tell you if your chicken's at 165 or not, whether it's safe to consume. Because most of us, if we are afraid of making our family or friends sick, you're going to overcook the food to be safe. But this talking thermometer lets me get the same information you're getting through your eyes through my ears. So plus if I do have any vision loss, or if it is dark and I can't see well in the dark and I got to get my face close to the display, now my eyes are near the food, my nose is, my mouth is. It's not a safe place to be. So if you can get the information through your ears, I think everybody should do that.
Right. And like you said, it's a kind of a guess of where you're going. And even when you can see it, you might want to put it in a couple different locations of it, because when you read it, you may get a different temperature, and you could put it, in a couple of different locations and make sure that it's cooked thoroughly in multiple locations if you're cooking a bigger item on the grill.
No, you're exactly right, because it's the thickest part closest to the bone of that cut of meat is going to be the last part to cook. So you want to make sure that you're getting it into the right spaces. But absolutely, multiple probings are important.
And you mentioned that talking thermometer is made for everyday people at nighttime rather than those visually impaired.
Mhm.
Which of the tools would you say are actually for maybe everybody, not even thinking of those that need it in that manner?
Okay, for grilling specifically, I think all of them are made for the general population. They just lend themselves well to cooking with vision loss. So I'll tell you about another one. A problem. So flipping a hamburger, flipping a steak, it can be difficult if you have vision loss, because it's hard to slide it underneath and get it. So number one, I've got the grill gloves, and I'm sure you're familiar with these. They come up your arm, up your forearm, like probably 6 or 7 inches, and they have a thumb and 4 fingers, and they're made of cloth, but they're covered with silicone designs. So that way, that silicone helps protect you against the heat, but it keeps the flexibility. Have you seen gloves like that?
Yes, yes, I've seen what you're talking about.
Yeah, so those are really good because they give you tactile, but trying to get, let's see, that piece of chicken flipped over and knowing for sure that you flipped it over, it's hard to do if you can't see it. So we have something called a double spatula, and it's made out of stainless steel. And it's basically if a spatula and a pair of tongs had a baby, this is what it would look like. So you slide it under, and then there's a second, so that rectangle is about 4 inches by 3 inches on the bottom. The rectangle on the top is smaller, probably about 1 inch by 2 inches. So when I get under that steak, I can use my grilling glove, or I could use a fork to hold it in place so I can slide it underneath and know for sure I'm underneath it. Then I gently push down with the littler spatula on the top. They're attached, they don't come apart. And now I can pick it up, know that I have it on the platform, and then turn it over 180 and put it back down. And I'll know it's going to be almost in exactly the same place because I haven't moved my hand anywhere. So that's something that also isn't made for, and there's a lot of different versions of it on the market, but I like the one that has the smaller rectangle on top because it makes it easier to deposit that hamburger or that pork chop once you put it down. Another thing that I think is really useful, not made for the blind or visually impaired, but it's called a skewer, a double skewer. Because if you're cooking, let's say you're using bamboo skewers or metal skewers, and you run like, let's say for the hardest one, let's say we have like a row of cherry tomatoes, so they're round. As they cook on the grill, they they get hotter. The moisture gets released as steam. It makes the hole bigger that the is it's being punctured through. So when you go to turn it, it can turn uselessly in the center, and I really can't know. But ours have two prongs coming out of them. It has a handle and then two, I think they're about 8-inch prongs. So when I stick those same cherry tomatoes, I make sure they go through. Now it's hitting on two holes. There's no way I can't turn that 180 degrees. It can't roll uselessly. And so that also works really good for like other foods that roll. So I can put sausages or hot dogs, impale them, and then have them be a little distance apart so that they can, the heat can get in between them. And I can put, depending on how thick the sausage or the hot dog is, I can flip 4 of them at the same time and know that I've turned them 180 degrees and they're not going to roll between the grate or anything like that. It's going to work out. So again, this was not something made, but it just lends itself well to us.
Yes, because I can relate. I do grill a lot, and we have flat tops and things, or it's unlevel, and you put it there, and everything rolls. And try to always move it to the right spot. So that's a great way to make sure it stays where it's supposed to. You have an entire grilling, barbecue, and kitchen kit here, and there's those double prongs. Is there any one of those that's is the most popular one going to be the talking thermometer there, or the gloves?
The gloves, the talking thermometer, and not surprisingly, there's something called a corn cob cleaner.
Yeah, I'm looking at that.
It is so cool. And again, not meant for the blind or visually impaired, but it's good for, so the other thing is the population is aging. And with aging often comes with some sort of vision loss. It's different for everybody, but there are a lot of people that enjoy outdoor grilling. And then once they lose, macular degeneration or advanced glaucoma, they don't know how to get back. And that's what this is about. But the other thing that comes with aging sometimes is teeth problems. Like you can't really eat a corn cob anymore. So after you've grilled the corn, or you can do it when it's raw too, it depends on how you want to eat it, but you put what it is, it's a long tube and it's only got 4 pieces in it to it. You put the corn cob, you husk it, and then you get the silks off, and then you put it in, and now it's sticking up inside that tube straight up. The point of the corn is pointing towards the ceiling. There is a tube, a steel tube that has jagged little teeth on the bottom. They're sharp enough to get the corn kernels off the cob, but they aren't sharp enough to pierce your skin. So you just put that on the top. Now the corn is being held upward. You push down. Sometimes you need to turn a little bit. All of the corn kernels come off, and that they stay in the tube, as do the starches that squirt, because that can be a real messy job. And I remember when I used to be able to see, I grew up in Indiana, and we had to do a lot of canning of corns and stuff like that. And I remember it was easy to leave half of a corn kernel on there, for a whole row. This thing does it for you really quick, really easy, and really cleanly. So that's a popular tool.
I know when you first started, is barbecue and grilling, which is really cool that you do that. Is it something that developed, maybe people requested, or how did you all of a sudden decide a barbecue kit is something to go ahead and add to your collection?
Yeah, it was requested. One guy looked at my library, and I have things on dining out, I have things on different cooking methods, I have things on labeling things and how do you identify things, and he said, This is a great website, but you don't have anything on barbecuing or grilling." I was like, "Oops, you're right." And so then I started my brother also has the same eye disease I do, and he grills all the time. He's into sous vide and all that kind of stuff, so he was one of my original testers because he's very good at what he does. So that's yeah, it was a request and it's quite popular.
So it's kind of evolving over time because, in our motto here is outdoor cooking just tastes better. We just love to do this everything outdoors. And then as you get more people involved, feedback, comments, and those kind of things, you kind of fine tune it as you go along.
Exactly right. It's that feedback that helps make you better. Is that double spatula good for people? Maybe the handle's too long, maybe the handle's too short, maybe it shouldn't be stainless steel. But so far I've been getting really good feedback for these tools.
Yeah, I was also looking, you have several recipes, like the way they're laid out. I was looking at a couple of them that I would definitely try myself and the way they go. But I also caught my eye there. You actually have some barbecue sauce.
I do. And that was based on a recipe from Christine Haas. She is a blind cook that won the 3rd season of MasterChef. And so I was trying to recreate some of her recipes in her book, and that's where that one came from. So that's got a special place in my heart. And any kind of rubs or any kind of sauces, you can always tweak it. If you want it smokier, you could add more smoked paprika, or you could add liquid smoke. If you want it sweeter, you could add more brown sugar or honey, or however you want to make it your own. But the recipes on this website are a good start.
Now, do you have any favorite grill recipe yourself or barbecue stories?
Barbecue stories. Well, yeah. One of the things I was learning on is I always have a work tray, which is a tray that keeps everything in one place for me. And then I had the grilling gloves, but I had a cloth. And the cloth, I had it over my shoulder while I was working. I was wearing an apron, and somehow the cloth came off and it started on fire. And so that was a little bit scary, but that's how I came up with the grilling clips, that they are a about 4 inches long, and they have an alligator clip on one end and an alligator clip on the other end, made out of stainless steel. So now I clip a cloth to my apron or to my clothing if that's all I'm wearing, and it moves with me, which is nice too, and it's never gonna end up in the flames. And the other thing I do is my grilling gloves. It's really easy to put those down and then they move as you're doing things. But I use those glove clips to they attach to my apron and then they attach to the gloves. So they move around with me wherever I go. So I've always got them.
Now, there was something else I saw on here that I actually want. I'm going to probably get these, and this would pertain to anybody grilling or cooking indoors alone. And I actually have a couple of cuts right now on my finger. The last time, about a week ago, I was cutting and I pricked my finger a couple of times. And I see these chain mail or they're gloves that you can wear when you're cutting so you don't have to worry about cutting yourself. Because when you're grilling, a lot of times you'll be prepping chicken in cubes, slicing up onions to throw on, smash burgers, whatever you're doing. And are those pretty something you'd recommend, not just visually impaired, but anyone to really have?
Oh, absolutely. And the way I learned about those, I was working in a commercial kitchen. I was the only blind person there, the only blind cook, but the insurance company required all cooks to wear them before I'd ever gotten there, before they even knew they were going to have me apply. And so all the cooks had to wear them. They have chainmail is a good word, but these are much thinner than that, but they're a level 5, which means they're flexible. They're not going to be really bulky like the heat gloves and the grill gloves are quite bulky. They're going to be thicker. So the other thing that thing is good for is, remember I was telling you I need to make sure if I'm cooking like a chicken a chicken breast or anything, I need to have that thermometer tip at least at one point in when I'm probing it, and I do it multiple times, is that I want to have it in the thickest part of the meat closest to the bone, depending on how it applies. That cut glove is not expected to protect me against heat, but it does. It's better than my skin. So I can put that cut glove on, and now I've got more flexibility, more tactile information, and I can actually touch that meat and for just a couple seconds, because eventually the heat's going to get to me. It's not meant to protect, but that's the other good use for that. So like when I'm flipping that hamburger I'm talking about, I'll put that glove on my left hand so that I can hold the hamburger and then put that underneath it. And then I know I've got it on the platform. It just gives me more tactile information, even if the food is hot.
So what you're saying is we have like a Blackstone griddle, a 22-inch griddle that you heat up. And sometimes while we're cooking on it, we can cut additional food on it. Now, not directly on the griddle itself, but we have a kind of a heat resistant. It's kind of like a cutting board, but it's got feet, gets on top of it, and you can cut with that. So if you had those gloves on and on that cutting board, you're kind of close to the griddle. They're going to protect you from the heat and cutting yourself kind of all in one.
Ooh, I'll have to check that out. That sounds like something that would be useful.
Yeah, because you can get on there and say you wanted to dice up some additional onions or something, and you can do it right beside there and just go ahead and slide it right onto the griddle food and things like that.
Without messing up your nonstick surface, it sounds like.
Yes.
Yeah, so just a little kind of fun tip here. Have you ever seen a George Foreman grill?
Yes, I think we may even have one.
Do you? So that is hugely popular with the blind community, mostly because, well, usually they only have one temperature. Some of them have more controls, but they usually are at 350, and it's preset. So we don't have to worry about the dials or controls. When it's plugged in, it's on. And if it's heated up, it's 350. But the other nice thing for a lot of people is you don't have to flip the food. It closes up like a suitcase. And so that's a real popular thing that I've used, especially with people that wanted the grilling experience per se, but they were afraid of cooking over an open flame. And it's not for everybody, and it is intimidating until you do it a few times and realize that you really aren't going to get burnt. That's a really good tool. And I wanted to also tell you something that you might like to. So in culinary school, I learned this. They have something out there called finger cuts in a first aid kit. So we sell these little first aid kits with Band-Aids. The problem is if you just cut yourself, just a little bit and you just want to put a Band-Aid on it, when you're cooking or grilling, your hands often get wet, either from the steam or from the sweat or, from washing your hands. So if you can't see, especially, or if it's dark outside, that rubber band could fall down into the food or the Band-Aid and you don't even know it's there. So what this does, it's kind of like, I'm just going to say the word, you put the rubber band on or the Band-Aid on, and now your finger's dry, it's on, but now you want to get back to cooking quickly. It's kind of like a finger condom. That's the best way that it unrolls over your finger, and it's tight. It's uncomfortably tight, but that's so that it holds on, that you're not going to lose it. And that enables you to keep that Band-Aid on and get back to cooking really quickly without worrying about that Band-Aid falling out.
Oh, real cool.
Yeah, it is a good one.
Now you have all these adaptive tools. Now, do you also do any classes or coaching or anything like that, or you pretty much just give the product to help those that need it?
Right. The products are the main thing, but I also do workshops and public speaking for people, and I also do like presentations at conferences to just help get the word out and let people know that it's there.
And if someone was per se into grilling or something, what is the one advice or what would you recommend to them?
So it depends on their skill level and their comfort and their vision, but there's another tool I didn't tell you about that I think people will like, and it's called the grill basket. And basically, I think it's about 16 inches wide and 12 inches tall and about 1 inch deep. and it's literally like a suitcase, but it's a grill basket. It's the, you know, the I can't think of the right word. It's grilling material. You put it in, it's gonna be exposed to the flame or the heat source, whatever your heat source is. Um, and then you can put, like, 4 hamburger patties in there, or you can put 4 small petite steaks if you wanted to put them in there, and then you close up the basket and you lock it, but now remember, air and heat can get all around this basket, and so you cook it for the amount of time you want for your steak, maybe 4 minutes on one side, depending on the thickness and how cold it is at the time you put it on, and then you can flip it over. All 4 of them are contained within that basket, and they all flip at the same time. So that's a pretty handy one to have too, where the food is contained, you know where it's at, it's predictable, and that's a pretty good tool that for people to have, especially people that are just beginning, that aren't wanting to be chasing their food all over the grill if it rolls or something like that.
So you could flip it all at once. You ain't got to do them individually, getting them misplaced, knocking one off, or anything like that. And you said people just getting started, that would be very helpful for. Do you think most of the people, are you helping those that are very new and beginners trying to cook blind, or are these intermediate, older, more experienced people?
I'd go intermediate to more experienced because if you lose your vision, grilling's probably not gonna be the first place you go to for a new hobby. But most of these are people that were able to see and love doing it for their friends and family, and now because of vision loss, age-related or otherwise, they they don't know how to get back to it. How can I possibly, like you were talking, those flare-ups of the flames, what how if I can't see it, how am I gonna control it? Uh, and so these tools help them give the confidence that they can do it, and you get into it slowly again. But you know, the best emails I get are from people who thought that part of their identity was gone. You know, they're the one that cooks on Memorial Day. They do all the grilling for, 4th of July, and now they thought they'd never be able to do it again. And somehow they find the blind kitchen, and so it gives people that part of their identity back, and that's a good thing to hear because I I I like to do things that I used to like to do when I could see better. Of course, I can't drive, but I can cook, I can do other things. So that's so I would say most of the people that purchase this are either people or agencies that teach people with vision loss how to cook, or people that used to be able to cook and now want to get back to doing what they love to do.
Have already been enthusiasts of cooking or grilling or ever what it is they're doing, and unable to, and are looking to be able to bring that passion back.
Exactly right. I mean, think about yourself. You obviously have a passion for this, and if you were to lose your vision, you'd lose a big piece of who you are in terms of grilling.
Now, you mentioned people can email you. Well, could we go ahead and what do you want to give out your email or
Sure.
information website?
Sure. So you can go to theblindkitchen.com, and it's got a lot of detailed descriptions, and it's a very easy website to navigate because we use screen readers and magnifiers, and if we have pop-up ads and different things going on, it makes you insane. So it's a very clean website, and you can write to me at info@theblindkitchen.com, and if I don't know the answer, I'll ask my brother because he knows a lot more about it than I do.
And is there anything you're working on now? I mean, we talked about how you originally started, and then grilling was a just suggestion or a recommendation, or you need to be able to help me do this. Is there new things evolving that you haven't done yet? That the future? What is the future of the blind kitchen?
Well, the future of the blind kitchen, I want to create a community around it, kind of like you've done, where people can come to one place. I don't know if that looks like a podcast or if it looks like a cook along or whatever, something like that. But yeah, the idea is to create a community. But the next thing for barbecuing and grilling is I want to get sous vide up there because that is one of the safest way to cook. You know that chicken is 165 or 162, whatever you chose to put that in when you put it in the water. The uh, vacuum sealed bag in the water. And so it's one of the safest ways for blind people to be able to cook. It's already, you already know it's safe to consume. You've programmed it to where you want it, to what makes sense. And so I really think that would be a valuable technique for people with vision loss. And so I'm going to push that out when I can. But that requires purchasing equipment, or there's actually wands out there that you can get, but not many of them are accessible visually. So it's going to take a bit of expense of me getting different tools to find out which ones are going to be the most accessible for people with vision loss. And I cater to the most blind person in the world. I want anyone that visits my website to be able to use any of the tools that are on it. It's really important.
Of course, you've been doing all this blind yourself for the duration of this whole project?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. The blind kitchen was nothing. I've been a teacher in the past, a teacher of adults. So when I did lose most of my available vision, I didn't know what I wanted to teach. I knew I didn't want to go back to teaching what I was teaching because I thought it'd be frustrating. So I was in a cooking class, and my dear friend, I said, "This is fun. I enjoy this." And maybe I could teach cooking. And then immediately I said, "I can't. I don't know how to cook. I don't know how to teach cooking because I'm one of 12 kids. So my mom didn't have time to put each of her 7 daughters in front of the stove. So my contributions to dinner were like peeling 10 pounds of potatoes, setting the table, and cleaning up. So when I raised my family, I got things out of boxes and cans. I could follow instructions and, macaroni and cheese or hamburger helper, but I really had no love for cooking and no real interest in it. But when I when that light bulb went on in my head at the Commission for the Blind, I said, what's the best way to learn how to teach cooking? And to learn it is to go to cooking school. So I had planned to just teach after I got done with that. That would just make me a better teacher. And then, as I said, when COVID hit, that's how the Blind Kitchen came to be. I was looking for a way to still be able to reach people, even if I couldn't teach them in person.
So the culinary school is kind of what sparked you into cooking as you do now.
100%. So Chef Earl and Chef Earl loves barbecuing, and he's from, I think, North Carolina, and he is excellent at it. And they had a big giant green egg. I had never seen one before, and they allowed me to experiment on that. So no, it was absolutely. And growing up in Indiana, girls didn't barbecue. The girls stayed in the kitchen and did the salads and got things ready, and the men did the barbecuing and took all the credit for everything. But it just wasn't a female role thing to do. So culinary school really did spark it in me. It's like, oh, this is fun. Yeah.
Right on. I was sitting here and I was thinking because there's something that I use frequently that would be, I would think, for help for those blind. And it is because when you're cooking, sometimes we'll cook something for not just minutes or even an hour, but several hours,
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
half of a day. So
Mhm.
I use a device that would actually be helpful for this. And I use it just so it will alert me if the temperature gets too hot, if the temperature gets too cold, and it has an alarm that goes off, and that's for just, regular people like me. But something like that would most definitely come in handy because, you can go take a nap and you can just have an app on your phone and it'll start buzzing and it'll say, what it doesn't do is it doesn't say. What you have to do is click on it and you look at it and it will tell you the temperature is, the fires went out in the grill. You need to check it.
Oh wow.
Everything is done. Or it'll give you information about, you can determine how far along a cook has gone, how hot the fire is. But it would be cool, in this case, is to, if it were to actually not just, you know, set an alarm and you got to click on it to look at it, but it actually told you, spoke out. And maybe there is a way, I don't know. But if it were to speak out to you and tell you what you need to know, that would be something real beneficial, I think.
I think can you tell me the brand name or not so much?
Sure. It's the one I have is Weber.
The Weber one. Okay, there's another one I've heard of called iMeat,
I've heard of that
and
one too.
okay, and it they so the question about these are, and you're right. I need to look into this. Are they accessible to screen readers on your phone? Because my phone, I use it with a blank screen completely, and I use swipes and gestures. And some apps are very accessible, and others aren't. So you know what? I'll probably order both brands and see if they're accessible. And if they are, you're right. That would be an excellent addition.
Yeah, that is something I don't know about the accessibility, but it would be something if it's not that should be requested or told that it needs to be, because that would be a definitely helpful tool. The one I have is actually a Weber Connect, and you
Weber
can actually,
Connect.
yeah, you can actually connect it, or you basically charge it, and you can connect it to Wi-Fi. You can even monitor it away from your home or in your home, but when it's sitting there, you can have a probe inside your grill, so it'll keep known you'll be able to continue to know the temperature in the grill, and you can also it has 3 others that you can put in, a piece
Oh,
of chicken, a piece of pork, and it will each probe tell you the temperature of each one. You can look at your phone and
wow.
determine what the temperature of each piece of food is, as well as the temperature inside the grill. But what I don't know that it does, I haven't tested it, is whether or not it would speak it to you or if there was, I don't know of any way, but that would be something I think would be helpful, for
I agree.
because something like that, if I was unable to see it, it would be something that would, definitely affect my ability or ways or, I cook things for 18 hours and you just
Mhm.
sleep and alarm will go off if something's going wrong because
Oh, wow. That would be very helpful. Now, let me ask you a question. So the probe is in the meat, or the 4 probes are in 4 different meats. Is it, is it tethered? Is it the wire hooked to your phone? I mean, like, is there a platform?
the Weber Connect one actually has and you can use pretty much any it is a wire. So you've got a device that you set next to your grill and it has
Okay.
4 probes that you put the wires in, and you can put it in, say, probe 1, and you can put it in a meat. You can put it in probe 2. You can put it in a different meat or a different location of the same meat. Then they have specific probes to where you can put a 3rd one in, and it just snaps on the grill, and it just kinda lays there like a temperature probe, so you can monitor
Okay.
the actual temperature in the grill.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah, that would be helpful.
And
Yeah.
I'm not sure about the iMeat one, I've just heard of that. There are some, I know there's Meter and a couple others that don't have a wire. You just plug it directly into the meat, and some of them will actually the same probe detect the temperature in the meat and the temperature outside the meat because 'cause it's got a temperature outside of it, and something like that might even be better, as I wouldn't be experienced to say for sure, but both of those are pretty good devices, and if it was just something to think about that I'd thought of.
I appreciate that, thank you. Yeah, it would be important to know if you ran out of propane.
And a story about, I don't know, it's been several years. We had a lightning storm come through. I'm here in Oklahoma, so we're
Mhm.
subject to storms all the time. And at that time, I was using a pellet grill, so the
Oh,
electricity
yeah.
needed to run. And I have a pellet grill. I have a charcoal. I've got about 5 or 6 out there. And lightning came through and it had kicked it off. At that time, I didn't have the Weber Connect or anything. And I was in bed, put it on at say 10 o'clock, slept right through the storm, woke up at 6 in the morning, 7 in the morning. It hadn't even cooked. At some time during
Oh.
it triggered it. That was a 15-pound brisket. Uh, as you
Oh,
said earlier, you don't want to get sick. We ended up tossing it because it didn't look like it'd been cooked that long. It could have been sitting there for hours. Uh,
right, at room
it
temperature.
back
Yeah.
yeah, and everything else in there. So those are definitely good devices. And once again, like we talked earlier, are really good for anybody
Yes.
in multiple situations. So
Yep, for sure. We have another device that's kinda interesting. I'll just that's kind of the same thing. So it's for indoors. It's for boiling, and it's called a boiler disc, and it rattles when liquid is boiling in a pan. So it's not meant for people that can't see, but it's nice for me to know I can hear when the water starts to boil. So if I'm going to poach something or steam it, I can start the timer when I hear it. I'll know exactly, and I don't have to take the lid off and lose the temperature. And so if I'm doing something like tamales or steaming something, if I don't hear that thing rattling, I know it's a problem because that means I've run out of water. So it's kind of the same concept,
Yeah.
you know?
No, yeah, right. Everything's dried up.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Now, sometimes you will also want to cook something. How would you go about? Because we were cooking. I actually, when I say outdoor cooking, we do it all. I baked a cake recently and put it in a pan, put it on our grill outdoors, and had it grill up. But you've got to put a lot of. We had to put different ingredients in it and everything. Is there an easy way for you to be able to determine? That would be hard for me because you got to put a couple tablespoons of this and that. How are you able to put a recipe together easily?
Yeah, so we have several tools. So one of them, if we're talking like oil, you need it's often it said put 2 tablespoons of oil into the cast iron pan or whatever. And we have a thing called an auto measure spout, and it goes on top of a bottle. It's got to fit the bottle snugly, but I use wine bottles, empty wine bottles, and then I put the oil in there, and then I turn it upside down over the bowl or the pan I want to go in, and it'll dispense exactly 1 tablespoon of liquid, and then it'll stop automatically, even if I'm holding it upside down. They're meant for liquor bottles. If you go into bars, you see they have so that the bar manager can control his costs. So they have different amounts that they dispense, but the most helpful one was for 1 tablespoon for us. I'm looking for a teaspoon one, but I guess nobody wants 1 teaspoon of alcohol. Apparently, it's not a size.
Well, alcohol item turned into that's pretty cool. Because I know when I turn it upside down, I put a lot more than 1 tablespoon. So that would be real nice to have.
Yeah, it measures it for me is the bottom line. But we have other measuring cups and spoons that, like, if it's a third of a cup, it has 3 dots on the stainless steel handle. If it has 4, then it's a quarter cup or a quarter teaspoon. But the nice thing about the liquid ones is they are shaped like ladles. So when you're pouring the liquid and you're transferring it, you make sure it's underwater. Like let's say I'm doing let's say hot sauce and I need a quarter teaspoon. That's a terrible thing, but let's say I need a teaspoon of hot sauce in this particular sauce that I'm doing. I will find the one that has 1 dot on it. Now I know it's a teaspoon, and I put it in this little pitcher, and then I overflow the cavity of the spoon with the liquid, not the little pitcher, but the cavity of the spoon. So that way, no, if I lift it up, and I'm lifting straight up because the handle's towards the ceiling, lift straight up like a ladle, and I don't hear anything drop off. I know I have exactly a level teaspoon there, and then I can deposit that into the recipe. And now the overflow that's in that little pitcher, I have a funnel that we send with it too, and you can just pour the overflow back into the bottle using the funnel, and you haven't wasted anything, and you know your measurements are accurate. So there are ways to do this.
Okay, so it measures it, and then you don't waste anything and put it back. Now, for me myself, I would be the guy because I'm just crazy, spicy, crazy. I would put it in there and say, "I just go ahead and throw the rest in too." I pick it on up double the notch, so I'm very bad about that. Something says put in what's that one cayenne peppers? I'll say nah, let's throw some habanero in instead. So
Oh, you're more of a I'm Irish. I'm trying to increase my spice meter because my mother's spiciest sauce was ketchup. So I'm still trying to educate my palate to be able to handle them.
in the cooking, it's a pretty good community. I've made tons of barbecue friends. We're just cooking people, and we kind of just have a. I have a ton of online friends from doing this, and it would be, and that's something that are you trying to evolve into a little bit?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. That's talking about cook-alongs, things like that. Because the other thing, I'll put that out there, is if you have vision loss, it gets really hard to get to places, especially, transportation is always a barrier. And then, you're in a place you don't know, where's the bathroom? A lot of people become socially isolated because life does become more challenging. It's not impossible, but there are problems to be solved that you didn't used to have to solve. So if I could get a community going, whether it's around barbecuing or making pies or, whatever, or cook-alongs or cooking contests, I think a lot of isolated individuals would find a lot of pleasure in that and connecting with other people with vision loss that want to cook as well.
What an amazing conversation. The Blind Kitchen, that was Debra Erickson. You can visit her website at theblindkitchen.com. You can email her at info@theblindkitchen.com. Be sure and check her out and keep on firing up that grill.
Thank you for listening to the Okie Smokin podcast. Episodes drop every Monday. Don't forget to follow this podcast, or you might miss out on some delicious creations. You can also find us on our website, okiesmokin.com, and on YouTube and other social media platforms. Until next time, keep firing up that grill.